What's up, everybody? My name is Matt, otherwise known as the Brick Whiz. You might even have seen me on Beyond the Brick, and this is my occupation of Raxus mock. Now, this is inspired from Star Wars The Bad Batch from the TV show. It's from the first season. In the later episodes, essentially at the end of the Clone Wars, the Empire takes over after Order 66, and then they kind of go around the universe and the galaxy, taking over other separatist homeworlds, and Raxus is actually the capital of the Separatists. So obviously, as soon as the Empire takes over, there's no more droids, there's no more battles in Clone Wars, and they sort of take over. So this scene sort of depicts, there's a speech. In the show, there's a senator. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him, but right on top on the balcony, I replaced him with Borat. Of course, you have to have Borat giving a fantastic speech here, but essentially there's an Imperial senator giving a speech. They're taking over, and the people are just obviously upset. The Empire is not the nicest of people, so basically right here towards the middle, you have all these civilians, different types of aliens, and different types of races and people. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who actually let me borrow them, because it's probably well over 200 figures in total, so there's a lot of them right there. So basically they're sort of watching this speech, they're being told they're not going to be able to do certain things, they get super rowdy, and then as you move towards the right side of the mock, you have all three of these walkers, and this is sort of where the Empire comes in. They kind of crowd control, if you will. So these three walkers are actually brick vault designs. I did recolor them just so they're more accurate to the Imperial color scheme. So basically these three walkers are moving in. You can see all the troopers right in front of the walkers as well. A huge shout out to Brixalotl for definitely helping me get some of these guys. So you have some clones, other custom clone troopers sort of moving in on this crowd and stuff like that. Now one of my favorite parts are in the middle here is these statues. So you'll notice that for a Star Wars build, this has a little bit of a warmer color to it, which is kind of cool. So you have these column statues. There's 4 on each side, and there are custom built statues on top as well, just giving it some really cool architecture and style like that. So that was super cool. And then obviously one of the main attractions of the mock is just the flooring. So this is a medium nougat colored floor with lots of tan and white, and it's using a technique called snot, studs not on top. So you have bricks laid on their side, and it's probably well over 10,000 bricks just on the very bottom of this. It makes a nice and smooth surface. It's super cool, and I love the way the color came out. Really quickly, we could also go over towards the right side of the mock. There is this little green grass hill. So in the show, obviously, these things are a little more spread apart. Working with LEGO, as we all know, it gets a little, you have to work with what you have, essentially. So we kind of have this little half hill right over here. Nice little green texture, have some trees, using some techniques from the LEGO Ideas treehouse. You have some really nice bright colors on top. You got the bright orange leaves and the purple flowers as well on the bottom. So I wanted to add that as well, because seeing gray and can get very monotonous, get very boring. So having the green, having the trees, giving that little breakup in style is pretty cool.
The whole layout is fantastic here, and this thing is quite large. So do you know the kind of the total piece count of everything here?
Yeah, I think total piece count's probably around 70 or 80,000 for sure. And then in terms of hours work, this took me about 10 months and probably around 200 to 300 hours in terms of labor, designing stuff and getting everything set. So it's definitely a bigger build. And then the larger attraction of the build is definitely the Capitol building. So it's a majority gray building. I actually made it modular because I did have to drive down here with Raxus. So the top of the building comes off, the sides of the building comes off, and all the columns down below as well. They all separate super easily, which is nice. And then as we were talking about before, on the very top of the balcony, you have the Imperial officer, Borat for some odd reason, and then some clone troopers and stuff like that. There is no interior, but I still like the look of it. You have some beautiful blue windows right here, giving it a really nice color contrast. And then right in the middle, you also have this sort of black spire. It gives it a nice little point, nice little curvature, and looks super cool. And then also right below it, you'll see here, right towards the bottom, there are these support beams. That's very important to holding up the weight of the mock, but those came out super nice as well. Again, everything's modular. It's surprising how much everything is modular when you think of coming to conventions and stuff like that. So that was definitely something I planned for BrickFair Virginia.
And you mentioned these statues earlier, so if you want to, go ahead and dive a little more into some of the parts usages there, because you do achieve a really nice look at a small scale.
Yeah, the statues were super hard. I did have to use some help as well from some of my more talented friends, but it was a nice design. So basically we're using a lot of different curved light bluish gray pieces, and then connecting everything in the middle is going to be what's called snot bricks or modified bricks. So it's like a brick with a bunch of holes on the side. So you have the ability to create a lot of different angles and curvature with that type of stuff. So that's kind of how it came to be. And then the heads of the statues, they look a little bit like the alien from like the movie, which wasn't intentional, but it came out working really nice. And then there's a nice little neck piece, which is actually in the Marvel CMF packs. It's like a transparent piece. You connect the two, and then there's also a spear in their hand and everything like that. The statues were definitely one of the more hard things to create for sure, but it really makes it look nice. It makes the ground look a little bit more full, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. It adds that kind of 3D effect to it as well. Now I wanted to dive into the minifigures here. You referenced those a little bit earlier, but there's so many in here. So point out some of your favorites. Are there any like accessories or what all do we have happening there?
Yeah, so I mean, generally, obviously, there are clone troopers. They're using the Phase 1 bodies of the currently produced Clone Troopers Battle Pack. And then we used CAC helmets, which look super cool. And then in terms of specific minifigures, one of my favorites, you got my man Bricks O'Brien right there in the middle with the blue hat. You know, Brian, he likes to cause trouble and you know, instigate a lot. So, of course, one of my clone troopers is getting right on and making sure we're not going to see any funny business going on from him. Right in front of him, you also have some of the Bith musicians from the Cantina. So you see their tan head right there. And again, a really cool, iconic alien from Star Wars. You also have a Greedo minifigure. Obviously, it's not Greedo specifically, but it's the same alien. LEGO doesn't make too much of the alien, so you kind of have to work with what you got. And then a lot of other stuff is just a mix of general Rebel parts. A lot of the Rebel battle packs, you can fig barf, which is basically when you put different heads and different pieces on a minifigure that don't typically go together. And you know, when you're creating civilians, you want to get as much diversity, as much difference going in there, make sure it's not too uniform for sure. So again, a huge shout out to everyone who helped me with those, because that was a big struggle. Getting this many minifigures in a mock is always tough for sure.
But it looks great, and I know with these big walkers you mentioned here, so those were based on Brick Vault design, right? But what was the build process like for that?
Yeah, so Brick Vault's design process is super simple. You buy it, they give you the email and instructions and stuff. I could also open the ATTE if you guys want to see it as well. I'm not sure if this is the one that has the troopers in it, but the top does come off. You can see here a pretty much full interior. There's 6 seats and then 2 up front for the cockpit and then 2 on the side as well. And then there is a back section as well, and this does come up as well. These things are a little fragile, I've noticed, but they are mocks. They're not Lego sets, so you obviously have to be a little bit careful when it comes to stuff like that. But these ATTEs are fantastic. I'd recommend it to anyone who's looking to get into a minifigure scaled version of the ATTE for sure.
And you referenced the floor earlier, which is a big part of this build and looks fantastic. So talk about kind of some of the elements you use to create a little bit of variation in texture throughout this, so it's not just all kind of like 2x4 brick.
Yeah, so that was obviously super important, making sure it wasn't too monotonous. So on the sides here, you might be able to see there are these lines going in here. These are actually masonry brick, but they're just upside down. So you don't see the actual brick indentations, but it gives it a nice little breakup. You also see here there are white plates mixed with some different tan bricks, and medium nougat is pretty much the main color here as well. So making sure there was some sort of noticeable pattern and not, like you said, just a boring, you know, floor, I guess, is super important. And mixing in the colors was one of my favorite things. I think this color palette, like I said, you don't really typically see these colors in Star Wars. So that's kind of where my initial drive for building this mock and seeing it come together, that's kind of where it came from.
How did you decide on this scene? It's from the Bad Batch, right? So how did you decide on this scene from the show?
Yeah, I saw the trailer actually. So this was before the show came out. I saw the trailer and I kind of had that moment where I was like, I really want to build that, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. You see something and it immediately calls to you, and that was sort of how it went. And then obviously as the episodes came out, I was able to get some more reference material, looking at the show, looking at different images, the buildings, the floors, the statues, everything like that. And then I was really able to get the ball rolling. But as soon as I saw in the trailer with the music and just all the epicness behind Bad Batch for me, I knew that was something that I wanted to do.
And I should definitely mention, for anyone who hasn't seen Matt's work either on Beyond the Brick or your own channel, you do a lot of great content on your own. So talk about kind of what people can find on your channel if they go over and check that out, and how that relates to this build here.
Yeah, so all socials are at the BrickWiz. I basically build Lego Star Wars mocks. I do some reviews as well, lots of vlog style content too. It's very much a passion for me. I love doing this. I love being invested in the Lego community. So if that's something you're looking for, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter at the BrickWiz. You guys can see the build process behind this mock. And obviously whenever I go on to my next project, I do a weekly series. Every single week you get little updates, and over time you kind of see the progression leading up towards like a finale, I guess, if you will, of the total mock once it's done and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Well, keep up the amazing work. It's always fantastic to see your builds at shows. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, guys.